Hello, I hope you're having a good day. Today I wanted to talk about something that I think is very important in art, and that is confidence. When you think of illustration or a really good illustration, it's usually one of two things. It's usually either really detailed and accurate and realistic, and the other thing that it usually is, if it's not that, is it has a lot of emotion and it's really loose, and it's not very realistic necessarily, but because of how much emotion you're getting out of the piece and how loose and confident it is, it really speaks to you. And so that's the type of work I want to talk about today, and I want to talk about how you can achieve that in your own work. And I think I want to talk about that because, as far as like being really detailed and really realistic in your work, that's not something that I feel like I'm very good at. And so I want to talk about something that I do feel like I'm pretty good at, which is being confident and loose. Confidence is obviously an attractive thing. People find themselves more attracted to people who present themselves with confidence. And when you see someone speaking to you, you can tell if they're confident or not. With the drawing, though, you don't even have to see the person drawing the piece to know whether they have confidence or not. You can just look at it and you can just see it. It's visual. It's a visual thing. They don't have to be the person that drew it doesn't have to be in your presence. You can look at it and know. And so how can you get that type of confidence where people can look at your work and they just know that you knew what you were doing, or at least you were confident in what you were doing? So I wanted to talk about some ideas that help loosen up your work, and also some exercises that are actually fun ways that you can free yourself up when you're working or as a warm-up. So here's some ideas that will help loosen up your work. And this first one, it really applies more to illustrators or to graphic designers, people who work with clients. When you work with a client and it's their idea that you're illustrating, you have to show them thumbnail sketches to start, and then they choose which ideas they like, and then you kind of whittle it down, and then you present them a more finished sketch, and then maybe another sketch after that with colors. And so you're really doing it in stages. And because of that, a lot of illustrators and designers will use a light box to trace their work, especially once they've got the idea or the concept laid out. So they get the idea and the concept, and the client approves. And so now what they keep doing as they're doing it in stages, they're using the light box to trace the image. And the problem with that is, every time you trace the original image, usually your original sketches are very loose. And so whenever you're tracing an image through a light box, it's like you're losing like 25% of the energy out of the piece. And so if you're doing that multiple times, by the end of it, the finished piece is not going to have nearly as much energy as that original sketch that you showed your client. And that's an issue. That's an issue that I see tons of people have. And so I think that ditching the light box altogether is a really smart way to go. I know that, once you get your piece laid out, it's easy to think that you won't be able to replicate it, so that's why you use the light box. But I think that if you're able to just lose the light box and have confidence that you'll be able to replicate what you did, you're going to see at least an improvement in the energy. Maybe the things won't end up exactly laid out the same way, as you're copying it versus tracing it, but the energy level will remain, and that's, I think, much more important than having the exact layout that you originally had. So that's one idea. And I know that idea really is geared towards illustrators and designers more. And some of you are just, you just have a sketchbook practice, or you're fine artists. So that idea may not work well for you. But let's talk about some that will work for everyone. This next one is huge. It really helped me overcome like a stiffness in my work. And it's because when you first open up your notebook or your sketchbook, or you get a new piece of paper, there's something that's very intimidating about that piece of paper being blank. It's almost like you don't want to mess it up. It's pristine. And because of that, you have like nerves about it, and your work, it shows. And so how can you become confident with a blank piece of paper? What I like to do is I like to take a piece of paper that's already used or has scribbles on it, or if it doesn't have scribbles on it, take a pencil and do some scribbles in the corner or wherever. The point is, make the paper so that it's not pristine. And when I started doing that, I noticed I wasn't nervous at all because this paper was already used and it was already messed up. And so now I'm drawing on a piece of paper that's already got ink or lead or smudges or whatever on it, and because of that I'm so much more relaxed and my drawings come out so much more confident and loose. And so that's a really cool thing to experiment with. And I know, for instance, when I have a new sketchbook or new notebook that I'm working in, I usually use the back page as like a place where I'm testing out ink or pens to see if they're still working, or paint colors. And so that last page in the notebook ends up with like tons of scribbles and paint splashes and all sorts of stuff on it. And when I get to the end of the notebook, I still use that page as a drawing page. And almost every single time, it ends up that page is my favorite drawing in the whole notebook. And it's because it's got so much crap on it by the time I get to it that I have a new kitten and she's like running around crazy. So if you hear things like scraping, and that's what it is. And if she comes by, I'll grab her so you can see her. Anyway, so yeah, use paper that is not pristine and you will notice that you'll have way more confidence in your work. Another idea is to start a sketchbook that you're not planning on showing anyone. And what I like to do with this sketchbook is I don't even like to think beforehand of what I'm going to draw. I just open it and start drawing, stream of consciousness. It might end up being just a book of doodles or scribbles, but what it does is it gets you used to drawing with no expectations, because no one's going to really see it. So you're really able to be more experimental, and the more you do that, the more that is going to influence your regular work that's not in this sketchbook. And of course, you're going to end up having work in that sketchbook that you might want to show people, but the point is, you're not planning on showing anyone. This is a book that it's for you, and it's for you to experiment and do whatever you want in it. And it just gets you used to, just experimenting. I know I already said that, but that's what it really is for. And so those are just some ideas, but I do have some exercises also that I think are really cool ways to like warm up and just to loosen yourself up. So the first exercise I want to talk about is one that I did at a workshop at the Maine College of Art, and Emily Flake, who's a New Yorker cartoonist, was the one that gave us this exercise to do, and I really loved it for just loosening things up and really just as a great warm-up before you start drawing. So this is what it is. What you want to do is you get a piece of paper and you just divide it into 4 squares. Fold it in the middle, fold it on the sides, or just draw a line, whatever you want to do. And then in the top square right, or the top left square, write 1 minute. In the next one, write 20 seconds. In the bottom left, 10 seconds. In the bottom right, 5 seconds. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick like a random animal or object. I think in the workshop we did giraffes and hippopotamus or elephants. I can't remember, but just to pick a random animal. Don't look at any reference, because you really do know what, if you had to draw like a giraffe with a gun to your head and you couldn't look at reference, what a giraffe looks like. You could draw it at least to the point where someone else would be able to recognize that it's a giraffe. So you're not looking at any reference. Pick a random animal, or have someone tell you a random animal, and then in the first square, take 1 minute, set a timer, and draw the animal. And then when you're done with that, set the timer for 20 seconds, and then draw the animal, but you only have 20 seconds to do it this time. And then, keep going, do the 10-second version, and then do the 5-second version. This is a really great way to just loosen up, warm up before you start drawing, and you'll see like you can really draw pretty quickly and confidently. Even in 5 seconds, you can get a drawing done that at least resembles what it is that you're thinking of. So you can get your ideas across pretty quick, and it teaches you that you can really be confident with quick work too. The next exercise is something that you've probably done before. Almost everyone's done this. It's a blind contour drawing, and if you haven't done it, I'll explain it. Basically, you just want to get a live model or a photograph of somebody or you don't have to use a person, but I like to do it with people, and you're going to draw from that reference, but not looking at the piece of paper you're drawing on. So you're going to just continue looking at the reference, and you're going to draw it without looking. And if you haven't done this before, you'll be surprised that even though everything's kind of in the wrong place and it's a little bit of a mess, you're still getting your idea across. People are still going to recognize that it's a person or that it's a face or whatever. And so it really teaches you a lot about how making art perfect is not necessary. It gets your idea across just as good to do it as a blind contour drawing. You're still going to get your idea across. And so, of course, if you're trying to do like an incredibly detailed drawing or an incredibly realistic drawing, you're not going to do a blind contour drawing, right? But for the type of work we're talking about, where it's just really emotive and loose, blind contour drawings are an amazing tool to get yourself in that mindset, I guess. The final exercise I want to talk about is just a really simple exercise. It's just doing a drawing with your left hand, or I'm right-handed, so I'm saying left hand, but doing a drawing with your opposite hand. And you're not going to have nearly as much control as you normally would have because you don't use that hand nearly as much as you use your dominant hand. But this one really will show you that too much control, it's like overrated. It can stiffen up your work. And so I do this all the time. I draw left-handed almost at least a couple times a week just to loosen up a bit, but also just to remind myself that you don't need a lot of control over what you're doing. You just need confidence. And those things maybe are a little bit related, but they are different. And so that's important. So anyway, those are just some ideas and exercises, and I think that they should really help you, point you in the right direction. There's obviously no substitute for practice. That's the only way you're going to become more confident, but these help point you in the right direction at least. And I'm really curious to hear from you. What exercises or ideas have helped you loosen your work up? Or have you tried any of these and have they worked for you? So if you'd like to, leave a comment because I'd love to hear from you. And that was the cat, if you heard that. And so, yeah, thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. I told you if the cat came by the table, I would show you. So this is our new kitten. Her name is Pip, and she's probably like 9 weeks old. She's squirming a lot, but isn't she the cutest cat in the world?